I recently discovered an article posted in the New York Times on how to travel like local. And the author, Geoffrey Morrison, gives tips on how to make the most out of each travel trip by shaking off the limitations of retail tourism and experience the destination as a local. While we won't get into the details of the article, I will say that reading this really reminds me of my very good friend Jim Scott, who traveled to Belize, fell in love with this beautiful little nation, and decided to stay. Jim is currently the owner of the 501 Hub, which is an amazing restaurant where Belizeans can enjoy a wonderful dining experience in Belize City. Jim also has extensive experience in Belize tourism and hospitality industry, and today I am looking forward to hearing his travel stories to Belize and what has come about after discovering his love for this nation. I am your host, Javier Gutierrez, and this is the Belize Travelcast. Jim, good morning to you, and welcome to the Belize Travelcast.
Thanks, Javi. It's good to be here. The first of its kind.
You excited?
Yeah, I'm excited.
All right, it's good to have you here, buddy. And we are very aware that you traveled from far, from Michigan, a place that's very cold, totally different than Belize. But I want to get into it right away, man. What made you come to Belize?
Javi, I came to Belize as a Peace Corps volunteer in the 80s, and I put in my 2 years, 1 month and 14 days, and nobody was counting, of course. Working for two bureaucratic entities, the Belize government and the U.S. government at the same time. And,
they're not too big, man. Come on.
Huh?
They're not too big.
No. But for somebody who was just out of school, it was quite a experience. It was an adventure on all accounts. And I come from a really small village in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and it was a real cultural enlightenment for me. As you know, I grew up in the snow, and 300 plus inches a year.
And the villages around your place as well, Nigini, and I don't remember these places. Nigani. Ishpamin. It's different than doublehead cabbage and those types of names in Belize.
Yeah, there's a lot of indigenous American names up there. But I came from a little village, 250 people, a champion village.
Correct.
And it was an hour bus ride to my high school, made up of small villages, probably a half hour direct, without being on a bus, a direct drive of about 30 miles, and be getting into a smaller town than San Ignacio, where our high school was.
Wow. Yeah. So you're used to the small town life.
Well, yeah, I think there's some similarities. Small towns, if you do any mischief on one side of the village, your parents don't know before you reach home.
It's just like this little town.
And what people don't know about you, make up.
You mean they do that in Michigan, brother?
Yeah, a small town.
Well, I didn't know. But you came to Belize, you settled down, coming from a cold country, coming from a bigger country, even though you said you come from a small village. And it's amazing because, you know what, when you see somebody coming from the United States, you would think that you're talking about the skyscrapers and all that, but you came from hunting, you came from doing the fly fishing and all these little things along the streams of the United States, right?
Oh, yeah. We grew up outdoors. And if you didn't like the outdoors, you wouldn't like where I grew up.
Okay.
So being in touch with nature was kind of secondhand for me. And I took full advantage of it as a kid. And it gave me a deeper respect for managing your natural resources, recreating and enjoying what God gave us on the planet.
Totally so. So you came to Belize now. What was it cultural shocking to you? I mean, it's so different.
Yeah, it was a cultural shock and adjustment, but
give us some details.
But everything that I studied, I was one of those kids who always read magazines and National Geographic and Sports Illustrated and all of that kind of stuff. And as much as I enjoyed the cold and the snow and all of that, I always dreamt of the tropics and being in a warmer place and enjoying different activities that you do in warmer climates. So yeah, there was always this dreamy side. And of course, in all those glossy magazines and pictures, you never see the mosquito.
Correct. Correct.
But they're there just like Upper Michigan.
Yeah.
When the summer and spring comes, then they'll wire you just like here once in a while.
I like you said that, man. Then why are you? Yeah. Say that in English because I want the world to know what you mean.
Yeah, when in Creole, when they say they wire you, that means they mug you, they bite you, and
They sting.
they sting.
Yeah, so when you came to Belize, I mean, you read these little magazines and all that, but what was the most cultural, shocking action or experience that you had when you came into this lovely little nation?
I think there's a whole bunch of them.
Let them go.
The number one thing is the language. I had no language skills except small talk in Finn, because where I grew up, there was a very large population of Finlanders.
Correct.
But like here, there were other European, Scandinavian immigrants that settled in that area in the 1800s. And that was probably the only language exposure I ever had was Finn, because a lot of the old people still spoke Finn. So when I was younger, delivering the newspapers to the house, the old people only spoke Finn to you. And I'm not a Finlander, but I had to learn it.
It's a dialect or a language? It was...
No, it's a language.
It's a language, yeah.
But because they migrated from Europe, Scandinavia in the 1800s, it's an old dialect.
Correct.
So our language evolves, like
Into
culture and
correct.
food and everything
got you,
else. And so if I spoke that kind of Finn to someone from Finland now, they look at me like,
what the heck?
yeah, no, my grandparents talk. So you know, but you know, that's just how it is. And I think those similarities, the pluralism of culture in that part of the United States, Italians and Germans, Scandinavians, kind of makes it the special place that it is, like Belize.
Mm-hmm. But when you came here, though,
yeah,
what struck you the most as the difference that I'm talking about?
It was the Creole. It was the spirit, the casualness, and the language of Creole. And because there were similarities of vocabulary with English, and you have to learn the syntax and the grammar and all of that, I just thought that it was. And you know, I was a foreigner, and I didn't care how I sounded, and you know.
Knowing you tried to imitate the Creole right away, right?
Right away, man.
Yeah. So you fell into this basket, into this hornet's nest, into Belize City, where the biggest population of Belize is. How was that experience now? I mean...
Yeah, I didn't have a typical Peace Corps job. I wasn't put in a village in some rural area. And, you know, I was working for a national office in the Ministry of Health, and we worked all through the country. So I was based in Belize City, the largest city at the time I'd ever lived in.
That's what's funny to me, though. You know, anyway.
As I grew older, going through the city, I always told people Belize City was not representative of the whole country.
Correct.
Because Belize is so diverse. And I don't think culturally it's represented, even though all the cultures are represented there. It has its own makeup and stuff. And I always tell people, you know, Belize City is drooling with character and drooling with characters. And even when I do pickups at the airport, whatever, I always took people for a tour through Belize City.
Of course.
And I was fortunate that, you know, I was one of those foreigners. I could go anywhere in the city and navigate and know people, because I lived there.
That's one of the funnest stories I know of as well. You know, walking with Jim around Belize City was always an experience, because I am the local and Jim is the foreigner, and people would speak Creole to Jim and English to me. And in fact, there's a fun little story we went through at the hospital, but let's not get into that right now. There's so much you need to tell the world on your experience, this beautiful little nation. Jim, what about the food?
Well, the food was very different compared to what I was used to, obviously, but I embraced it, and I enjoy it. I enjoy the diversity of cultural food in Belize at that time, and I've enjoyed how it's evolved with other ethnic groups, other people from other nations that have migrated to Belize. So yeah, I've been and then as tourism has evolved so has the desires of our visitors, and the accessibility now of produce and goods is very different than it was in the 80s and early 90s.
Of course.
The availability. I mean, we couldn't even get peanut butter and pasta.
What year did you come here?
87.
That was 6 years after independence.
Yes.
So Belize, truthfully, was way below when it comes to development in that respect.
Well,
compared to now, I mean.
Yeah, it was rustic, as they say.
It was rustic, correct. What did you fear? They had to be fair. When you came into this country, you had to fear something. What did you fear?
I think safety standards were very different compared to where I grew up. I grew up in a culture that if somebody broke down on the side of the highway, Mr. Mackey would pull over, and then I would see Mr. Mackey's car, and I would pull over, and in a small village, and people would be there to help. We didn't have keys to our house, so we never locked up our house, never locked up our cars. There were some safety issues like that. In Belize City, especially at that time, everybody had burglar bars on their windows. So I think that was my greatest fear, although, I'm a 6'2" white boy who was always very, very fit and kind of, full of piss and vinegar in my own right at the time, right?
So did you get challenged by the locals at that time?
Well, I played.
You're very competitive.
Yeah, I played college basketball, so I came to a time in Belize City, where basketball was very popular, and of course, playing a couple times in a few parks, I got recruited by some guys to play on their city league teams at the time, and a lot of those guys are still my best friends to this day.
Okay, we're soon going into a little break, Jim, but before we go to break, I need to, first of all, you traveled Belize extensively, countrywide, I mean.
Yeah, I think at the end of my 2 years working in Belize and getting around on a budget and getting around through the auspice of the Ministry of Health and some of the health NGOs at the time, I knew Belize better than 90% of the population in Belize, and I knew how to get around logistically on a budget or first class. So that really helped me, and I think that also exposed me to the diversity of Belize.
I love that.
Kind of kept me here.
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah, and it was a great opportunity. And then because I already had a love for the nature, and it was just about learning the different ecosystems in Belize compared to a temperate, colder climate where I was from.
And then you got into tourism.
Yes. Well, actually, it was kind of a fluke because I had a job working in public health again, and it fell through last minute. And I had already made the commitment to stay in Belize. So I was kind of scratching my head.
Yeah.
And I had
what
no
to
job.
do. Yeah.
And I think because of my knowledge and because of my love for a nature-based travel, at that time, it was easy fit for me because there were so many people in tourism industry that were untrained and didn't know. And so it kind of put me in a position to be competitive.
Because your degree is
in public health.
But you had experience a little bit in the tourism industry as well, right?
Well, that was all after I got into tourism in Belize. So,
but you worked in. Oh, okay. So you went back to the States and you worked in a hotel, I think, right?
Well,
that was before.
When I got married, then my wife, Belizean, she had a scholarship at Loyola, and I did work in a hotel. But I had already been working in tourism here.
Yeah.
In San Pedro.
Okay. Good.
So I went to San Pedro, left San Pedro, went to New Orleans, worked in a big hotel there.
That was front desk at that time.
Yeah, and then became the front office manager. But the funny thing is, the general manager was a Belizean from Placencia.
That's how it is, and that's what I'm...
So I never knew him at the time, but I had worked with his brother in the Ministry of Health, and I knew his parents, who at that time were the owners of Rum Point.
Yeah. So, that's interesting, man, how you've developed as well through into the overall growth of tourism. You also grew with it. And today, Jim, you own your own little business. And as well, you do a lot of training in this country. And I'm talking about international certification as well.
Right. I was recruited, so to speak, to be a partner with a young Belizean lady, Lorena Zaldana.
That's your lady?
Yes.
I presume.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And she had this idea, and as a young Belizean growing up in the tourism industry, going to university, studying tourism and all of that, she had a passion for tourism.
Correct.
But when she actually got into the tourism field, she ran into a lot of blockades or walls and not enough bridges. And very bright, articulate, enthusiastic, passionate Belizean. I saw that in her, and I really admired it because she was always seeking information. And in tourism, when I was younger, I was the same way.
You have to be hungry.
Any type of training that was available, I took it. And it didn't matter if it was running a hotel or it was tour guiding.
Okay, good.
Archaeology, natural history, whatever it was, marine biology. If there were people, experts there to offer training, I was always there. She was like that.
All right, Jim, we can go on and on. You and I can go on and on. You're very conscious of this as well. But we have to take a very, very short break, and we are going to get back along with Jim and myself in just a little bit. All right, as I come back with my very good friend, guest here today, let's go back to our conversation, Jim. You came to Belize, you settled down, you love the country, you love the people, you mastered the country, and you decided you met Lorena, you saw potential in Lorena, you saw that eagerness and that ability, plus you saw that hunger to want to get into that training and business. Give us a little bit about that.
Well, as I was saying earlier, when I was growing up in the industry, I was taking every training I could. If it was about running a hotel or service or tour guiding, I was always given the opportunity to take advantage of it.
Correct.
And at that time, we had no educational institutions that had tourism programs.
Oh.
We didn't have hospitality programs. We didn't have tourism programs. But the industry was evolving into certifications. Tour guiding was one of the first, being a certified, qualified, trained tour guide and licensed in order to be able to take our visitors to some of the natural sites, etc. So jumping ahead now to modern times, we do have educational institutions, secondary, tertiary, and we don't have hospitality programs yet, though. So one of the things when I met Lorena and she started this business called Hospitality Training Services Belize, she had always had this problem with not having businesses she had worked with at the time investing in employees. Throughout Belize, whether you're in the jungle or whether you're out on the islands and stuff, we have investors who have invested tremendous amounts of money in these lovely properties and amenities, and we're just not investing in the staff. We're not giving them the tools to do their jobs effectively. And in essence, be more competitive in a world market who we compete with when it comes to service and services
it's necessary in the industry.
It's necessary. It's necessary for our evolution, and it should only get more pronounced and more prolific in terms of what we offer, especially all, the younger ones who are coming of age and entering the workforce and so forth. So she had this idea. She had been certified through the American Hotel Lodging Educational Institute, AHLEI. It's US based, but it's worldwide. And she got this certification, and she looked into more certification, and she said, wow, we could partner with AHLEI, and we could certify people, and we could kind of start our own business. Same time, because of the years experience I've had in the industry and working with the Radisson brand.
You're also CHA, right?
Yes, I'm a certified hotel administrator, which is AHLEI's top hotel type certification. And then CHDT, which is certified departmental trainer.
Yeah, certified hospitality departmental trainer. It is
right. So those are the two certifications I have, and I, because I had that certification, in order to work for a Radisson brand that was mandatory, I think we were both kind of speaking the same language. I was always trying to implement training programs into any of the hotels and resorts that I had worked with.
So you've developed into this entity that's training a lot in Belize now.
Right. HTS, Hospitality Training Services. And then it just kept, I said, okay, yeah, I got to give up my daily hotel job and we need to get in to see the opportunities. AHLEI, meantime, US-based company, loved the business model that Lorena created and was getting excellent feedback from participants in terms of the skills and certifications they were getting. They started promoting us internationally. Just this year, been to Chile, working with a university there, training professors how to train hospitality. And it's a hospitality university.
Correct.
And been to Aruba twice this year, doing the same thing, liaisoning with their tourism boards and a local educational institution, and working with private sector individuals in training trainers.
Correct.
So, and of course, we've been doing it in Belize. And most of the time, either offering the courses ourselves or working with private property and working with their staff.
So it's becoming a successful entity now.
It is. It's a sustainable. It's a sustainable business.
Okay,
and there are times where we don't have enough trainers, and we don't have enough time for the demand. And then there are times in the consulting business and training business where things are kind of slow.
Yeah. But let's go back to the years when you came to Belize, Jim. What really triggered you to remain in this country?
Why am I drink the water?
That's yes. What the man is saying is that when you drink the water, it means that he drank the water and that made him stay in Little Belize, and that says a lot, because it means that he tasted the food, he tasted the water, he enjoyed what life was all about, and decided, you know what, I'm not going back to Michigan at all, or I'm not going to a big city or a big university. I'm going to stay in this little nation. Generally, Jim, that's what happened, right?
Yes, and of course, the people who embraced me and kind of took me under their wing and showed me the ropes, that helped a great deal too. There was just so many wonderful people at that time who genuinely wanted me to be successful in my experience in Belize, and they're still my friends to this day.
What's it like to be immersed in the industry, or in the country, I'm sorry, in the culture of Belize?
Well, immersion takes on a lot of different roles, and of course, food and language and cultural, societal norms. I embraced it and I enjoyed it. Whether you were at a wedding, a christening, or a funeral, things are different, and the way we celebrate, the way we mourn, those were things that interested me, and it was just the daily life of Belize. Back then on Wednesday, everything closed down in the city.
Correct.
After midday.
Even today, right?
No, it's different. Things have evolved.
But it's still slow on a Wednesday.
No, not really. No,
Seriously?
Belize City is really changed a lot. Yeah.
Because in San Ignacio town and the rest of the towns, I think Wednesday is just a natural slow day for business and everything else.
Yeah, that old siesta kind of midweek.
That's right.
Even Chetumal, you go across the border to Chetumal, Mexico, and in the old days, everything would shut down around 12, 1 o'clock. And then it didn't open up until the evening, but they would be open till 9 o'clock.
It's a Spanish influence.
Yeah.
Food or people?
Boy, I would say people have the greatest influence, but food, because I'm a lover of food and I've had an adventurous palate, I've embraced pretty much everything. And from the
you have a very, very, very healthy palate, Jim.
Yeah, I love
you cook you can take the weirdest leaf and make it into something delicious, and I know that's a gift of yours. But Belize is not a nation that cooks a lot of leaves. We cook a lot of starch and fatty stuff in this nation, in a good way. It's not said in a bad way, like rice and beans and meats and everything else, pork and the type of thing. So that's why I said people or food. Which is your favorite?
People
before food, no?
Yeah. I think people are, that's the heart of any nation, any culture, and I think that's what keeps me around.
What's your favorite culture?
Wow, that's a tough question. I would not answer that.
You afraid for getting in trouble?
Yeah, because I think I like the pluralistic society, and I think I like the evolution of culture so much, and I'm aware of it, and I see when it's creeping in, and now that I'm older, I can see, oh, okay, I remember when this took place, and look at where we're at now. So if if uh, if a new ethnic or cultural group came into Belize, like some of our Latino brothers from Salvador during the refugees during the Salvadorian
in the 80s,
Civil War, and
Correct.
same with Guatemala and stuff. You've seen how things evolve. I could see where other influences. We're getting Middle Eastern people coming into Belize now, and that's changing our palates and stuff. But it's a nice thing, you know.
Is the term Creole and the dialect Creole, is it magical to you?
Absolutely, but it does mean something different to me now than it did 30 years ago.
Why?
Because I think back then the population was different, and when you spoke of Creole, you spoke of a Creole person.
Yeah.
Nowadays, Creole is spoken Creole as a language and as a food is much more diverse.
All right.
And it's changed.
All right, let's go a little bit to nature, Jim.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you have been doing or if you've done that you're hooked with in regards to? You've climbed the Victoria Peak. You've traveled this country from north to south, east and west. You've been doing some diving. You've fished. In fact, you taught me to fly fish. You've encouraged me a lot. In fact, even in the tourism industry, and I must say thank you. This is a great opportunity to say thank you, because you also gave me the opportunity to learn to manage in the industry as well, hotel level. Give me some of the passions that you've gone or grown to love in this nation.
In terms of activities, I think it was just an extension and the foundation of my younger life. I always loved nature, and before I came here, I was a diver. But diving in Michigan, after I got certified, I thought to myself, if I never dive again, that's okay. I did it.
Yeah.
You know, 35-degree Fahrenheit
Oh, man.
water
Yeah,
in
yeah,
Lake
yeah.
Superior. Like, nah, I don't want to do this. You know?
Dry suits.
And well, we couldn't afford dry suits because we were just getting certified.
Yeah.
And you know, so you have this thick kind of wetsuit on and a hoodie and everything else, and then your instructor tells you, you know, no pee-pee in your wetsuit because these are rentals and so forth. And of course, as soon as you get in the water, what's your first feeling?
Well, that's what you do.
Yeah, and then you've got 98-degree urine flowing all through your wetsuit, and you're like, "Yeah, this feels good."
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
instead of 35-degree water going.
That's amazing, but it does help, doesn't it?
Yeah, and then you know, coming to Belize and diving here, it's like, okay, this is really scuba diving, and
Yeah.
then it's not only just the water temperature, but what you see, that life. And I was lucky in my first job in San Pedro. I did advanced certification. I thought about being a dive instructor. I started the course. And because I was working in a hotel, most of my dives at that time were night dives in order for me to log the dives I needed outside of the academic work. And, you know, 90% of the marine life is nocturnal.
Totally correct.
Kind of like being in the jungle,
Yeah.
and the big predators and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting, and it was beautiful during the day or whether it was at night, and you know, the parrotfish balloon and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It was just fascinating. So yeah, I loved it. And
Fly fishing.
fly fishing,
Regular fly fishing or a grand slam?
well, you know, Grand Slam is like a trophy, isn't it? You know, everybody likes to be competitive. I did this, I caught this fish, and you know, every time you tell the story, the fish gets bigger and
A bone or a
fights
tarpon?
more.
Or a permit?
I think bonefish are probably the funnest because they're the easiest to catch, and pound for pound, they're great fighters. Tarpon, you get a big tarpon on your line, you're going to be fighting this fish for a long time.
Never
and-
caught one up to today.
Yeah.
Never.
Okay.
Bit my line,
Yeah.
ripped it,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah, tarpon are you know, I guess it's like those big sailfish and stuff. You know, I've caught sailfish on a fly in Guatemala, and I said, okay, that's great. It was fun. Been there, done that. But getting in and being able to catch, a bonefish. And
Have you ever drunk the whiskey and smoked the cigar because of a Grand Slam, or have you not done that yet?
Yeah, the cognac, the champagne cognac. Yeah. Well, we started a tradition, as you know, in El Pescador South.
Yeah.
Every time or when you catch your first permit, you get a shot of King Louis XIII.
Yeah, that's totally right.
Cognac. So, and permit or a special fish because they're paranoid, schizophrenic, and they're on the flats of Belize. And if they see you, I mean, if you see them in the water, they obviously see you on the bow of a boat.
Yeah, they like crabs.
Yeah, they like crustaceans.
Yeah, crustaceans.
And other stuff. So
I caught a 24-pounder once. And it fought me for 45 minutes. And I told the guide, can you hold the rod, please, and help me? He says, no, that's your fish. You got to bring it in.
That's right. When my son was younger, Alistair, he hooked a tarpon one time, and we were with two friends, Tim and Osborne and his son. And when we would catch fish, just regular fish, dinner fish or whatever, we would take turns reeling it in, right, with the kids because they were small. Alistair hooked this big tarpon, and he did the same thing that you said. He's like, okay, I'm tired now. You guys, everybody looked at him like, cut the line. Cut the line. Nobody's reeling that in but you.
Yeah, that's right.
Right?
And he brought it in.
You
always play pranks on that little boy, man.
Yeah.
You always play pranks on that little boy.
Don't get going.
Like when you threw that perfume above the shower. I don't want to throw you
No.
Yeah, you're gonna begin laughing on that. But anyway,
don't get going.
I won't do that.
Not
to you
at Alistair's expense.
You're gonna begin getting red, and you won't be able to talk on that issue. But what's the best experience, Jim? On the best experience you've had in this beautiful country? All right. Before I ask that, I won't give you a general question like that. But
time to take a break.
Yeah, time to take a break. What would you prefer? I'll throw this out to you: ocean or jungle?
Depends on what I'm doing. To live, the jungle.
Yeah,
by far.
There's a lot of perfume in the jungle. All the beautiful flowers.
There's a lot of beautiful flowers.
They give us a quick little experience on climbing the Victoria Peak. And why I ask you this is that you climbed it several times and you also run it up and down in a day. You're a crazy man, Jim.
Yeah, it's a 50-kilometer round trip hike. It's 3 days long. It's probably, in my opinion, it's the most unique, spectacular national park we have, co-managed by Belize government and Belize Audubon Society. And it has great trails outside of the Victoria Peak trail, which only can be used certain times of the year anyways. But it's an incredible, the Coxcomb park is
beautiful.
Just incredible. Yeah, it's a great park, great trails, 3 kilometer, 1 kilometer, 6 kilometer, whatever. Wildlife. I hiked Victoria Peak this year with Lorena and some other friends.
The jaguars.
Yeah, well, I've seen lots of prints, but I've never seen a jaguar, and it's the only jaguar reserve in the whole world, right?
It's elusive. It's very elusive.
They're there, they're very elusive. So you'd be very lucky to see one. You'll see tracks, but you'll see other wildlife, monkeys, all the time.
Yeah.
And we saw 3 or 4 different packs of white-lipped peccary. And there's a few wari ticks too.
Well, the wari tick that Jim is talking about, he's talking about ticks.
Yeah.
And you do have ticks in the jungle, especially not during the rainy season, much like the dry season.
Dry season, yeah. So you should dress appropriately. Socks, spray down, and stuff. But
that's right.
And we don't have any of the, I think, northern diseases that some of the ticks have, but so it's not a big deal.
Before we say goodbye, what would you like the world to know about you, about Belize, and about coming to this nation?
I don't know if I want the world to know much about me.
Well, come on, man.
I've had a very blessed life. I had a conversation with a friend the other day, and we were just talking about life in general and things we've done. And I looked at him and I said, man, I've had a really good life, man. When it comes to adventure.
I can attest to that. I can attest to that.
Yeah, cultural diversity and the uniqueness of where I've lived.
But we still want to be here. We don't want to leave here.
No. That's the thing, you know.
Yeah.
But you're open to going places now, and you know, I've obviously traveled more since I've lived in Belize than I ever did growing up, you know. And both of my parents, I could say, would have never owned a U.S. passport had I not moved here.
Yeah.
So they like the majority of Americans, they would have gone through life without ever doing any type of international travel.
Well, I did meet both of them, your mom and your dad.
Yeah. But what was the question again?
Well, you said you didn't want the world to know much about how you've enjoyed life, but
Belize.
What do you want the world to know about this nation and why they should come here before we sign off?
Yeah. Belize is still a developing country. It's evolving in a lot of ways. And, you know, I would suggest not coming here with the idea that you want to change anything or anyone, but to look deep within the history of Belize, look deep within the people and the diversity of cultures and how all of us came here to exist as quote unquote Belizeans now, and really enjoy the combination of that cultural diversity that we have, and the food diversities that we have, and of course the environmental diversity that we have.
We can't forget that. The history too, right? I mean,
the history. It's a very special place in that sense. Yeah. And if you come to Belize, come with that attitude and that value of understanding and learning, and I think you'll have a richer experience. If you're just coming here to sit on the beach and drink fancy drinks, you could do that anywhere. But we
still want them to come if they want to do that.
That's fine. Get your golf cart and your little fancy drink.
Don't discourage them, and let them come, Jim.
To be quite honest, Javi, I don't encourage that.
You don't?
No, because I think the majority of people that do come here, they come here with that same value that we've been talking about. And I think if we're really going to market and find our niche, it should be people around the world who value those things.
I agree,
and that should be the kind of person.
I see your point. I see your point. I'm a little clown at times. I'm not trying to message you.
I know you think the same way.
Yeah, of course.
We're just having
diversity is always beautiful, though. I mean, Belize is diverse. Your trip package also must be diverse.
Yeah, and I think Belizeans on a whole, and generally speaking, are very, very hospitable people. And, I always tell people that, even if you're in Belize City and it's not always user-friendly, and the roads don't have one-way signs on one-way roads, and there's no names in the streets and stuff, and if you need directions, even one of the most miserable-looking mugs on the side of the street, you could stop and ask him for direction, and he'll tell you go so, and then go so, and then go so, and then go so. And but no go there.
Correct.
No go there.
Yeah.
And you're gonna find your way, because that's how Belizeans are.
Yeah. It's a strange country. Even the traffic lights they don't allow you to take right on a red. But anyway, we're gonna.
Some do. The one in Belmopan tells you you could go right.
In San Ignacio, it says don't go right on the red.
Okay.
So we're diverse, brother. We're diverse in the natural aspects, in rainfall, and everything else.
Yeah.
But Jim, you know what, brother? We can continue on, man. And I'm sure that we're going to have more good times on podcasts. At this time, though, I'd like to say thank you very much for joining us. Jim Scott, a very good friend of mine, as I said before, a man that came to this nation of ours, made it home. He came as a Peace Corps. Decided to stay because of the love that he ended up having, the passion that he met in this nation by the people. He enjoyed the food and, of course, the nature that it possesses. All these factors here, made his mind say, hey, his heart say, hey, I'm not leaving. This is home. I'm staying here. So Jim Scott has been here ever since. He opened his own business, the 501 Hub, met Lorena. They both are international trainers up to this day, pushing Belizeans to get there in the international standards for the tourism industry. For now, I'd like to say thank you very much. This is Javier Gutierrez, your host, and this is the Belize Travelcast.